pleasure to meet you. My name is Natalie Dixon. I'm the Interim Director of Membership and Marketing here at the Center Club. I wanted to thank Gina for introducing us to our speaker this evening. We are super excited for this event, and I know already our guest of honor has been bombarded with questions, so I wanted to let you know we're going to do a Q&A at the end following his presentation, because obviously this is an important topic to all of us, regardless of where we are in life and who we're taking care of in life. So I just wanted to welcome you, and we'll get going, I think. So it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's speaker, Dr. David Ajibade. He is a physician, educator, and international advocate for brain health. Dr. Ajibade is the founder and medical director of Brain and Body Solutions, as well as the executive director of Brain and Body Foundation, which operates both here in the US and in Nigeria. And through these organizations, he leads innovative efforts to improve outcomes for individuals with neurological conditions, including dementia, epilepsy, cerebral palsy, and more, using a blend of clinical care, research, and nutritional science. Since 2013, he has treated thousands of patients and earned recognition for his pioneering work. He was featured in Baltimore Magazine's 2024 Game Changers edition, and recently shared with me that he just finished up an interview for the Top 100 Health and Wellness Professionals magazine. He's also worked with the United Nations Foundation and helped shape Nigeria's first national e-health strategy. Dr. Ajibade's mission is both simple and powerful: to help people protect and restore brain functions, especially in midlife, by combining medical insight and practical, actionable tools for everyday life. I wanted to let you know that Dr. Ajibade is filming himself this evening, so you'll see a camera over here. None of you are on camera, unfortunately I was. So you all are protected, and I hope you will join me in welcoming we call him Dr. David Ajibade.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Natalie, for the kind introduction. I want to say a big thank you too to Gina, there she is, and Ellen for making this happen. It's a great honor to be here to speak to you guys. Am I coming across okay?
Yes.
I'm sometimes shaky when I first start a presentation, so bear with me a little bit. Okay, and I do have an accent.
No.
No. So yes, it is a tremendous honor. This is one of my passions. I've been speaking in Baltimore now for about 3 years. Do you all know that Baltimore is #1 in the country for dementia? Anybody knows that? You didn't know that? Highest rates, not actual numbers, but highest rates of dementia in the country. Maryland, as a state, is #1 among all the states. So I have my thoughts about why that is so, probably I'll keep it to myself in the meantime. I'll probably drop a few hints later on. But yes, it is a great honor. As I was saying, initially I was reaching out to the African American community because I was like, African Americans have worse than others do. But the more I spoke, I would speak at churches, I would speak at retirement homes, I would speak at Jewish centers, I would speak at centers like this, in DC and over here, and I found out that the problem was the same. Yeah, you have probably better access to better healthcare, but most people simply didn't know what to do about their brains. And I could see the fear in many people walking up to me after the meetings. Maybe they lost a loved one to dementia, and they checked their gene pool, the genetics, and they found out that they probably had that gene. And so the doctors were not telling them. And so it became a passion of mine to really make it as simple as possible, help people truly understand what they need to do in their daily lives. It's not just a one-size-fits-all, because everybody's different. Because people have to recognize what are the situations in their daily lives that can lead to or take away from dementia. In other words, people have to know what hurts their brains and avoid it, what helps their brains and embrace it. And you've got to find a way to objectively know whether or not you're doing the right thing. Does that sound simple enough?
Yes.
All right, so let's get into it. This is an unfortunate truth for many people, but I can tell you now that there are several doctors around the country, around the world, who are beginning to understand how to fix dementia. I'm fortunate to be one of those, because I run a clinic. Most of my work is virtual now because I've been away from Nigeria now for quite a while. So I saw patients in Nigeria and the UK and some parts of the Middle East. These are the things we're talking about. Hopefully we'll be able to cover it. I just found out now they shaved some more time out of the time I'm supposed to be speaking. So
So you guys can ask questions.
yeah. Okay, good. All right, so let me just get through this. This is what I was talking about. Baltimore City and Maryland number one. Women, you guys are twice as likely to have it as men. And the burden falls mainly on women to take care of their loved ones, right? So y'all need to know a lot about how to take care of your brains. We'll probably visit some of these slides later. So this is what a normal brain looks like. That's what a full-blown dementia brain looks like. We're talking about over 30% loss in brain tissue. That is a lot when you consider what the brain can do. It's a lot of brain tissue. So it's not just a psychological problem. It's not just that your loved one is just trying to be mean or just trying to be erratic. The brain is actually failing. Okay? So let's talk about what that is. I like to put this, let's look at the definitions up front first, because many times I would do it and I would think everybody knows what dementia is, right? No. So this is a problem that has to do with memory, thinking, behavior, and the ability to perform everyday activities. That's where it really is. If you have memory problems, but you can still perform your usual activities, it's not really dementia. And it's not just about memory loss. It's also about things like behavior, mood, sometimes even physical movement, and the ability to think, to calculate a tip, for instance, or to find your way back home. Some people, that's their first complaint. Dementia is an umbrella term that has over 100 different kinds of dementia. Alzheimer's disease just happens to be one of over 100. Albeit it's the most popular one, so about 75%, some say 80%, some say 60%. But Alzheimer's disease is the one most people are familiar with. And so let's talk about what the current conventional definition of Alzheimer's disease is. I promise there are going to be lots more pictures. I know this is very wordy. But the main thing with Alzheimer's disease is this right here. The accumulation of amyloid beta plaques. Everybody heard of that before? Yeah. So the amyloid plaques and the tau tangles. That is what is the hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, according to current knowledge. And I'm going to say this up front. I will say a few things that your neurologist or your specialist has not told you. And in some cases, it might be opposite to what your neurologist has told you. So bear in mind that I'm coming from a different angle, and I will get to it later, but this is a trigger warning, doesn't advance, okay? And trust me, I will explain. So your mission today is to ensure that you keep things as they are. You do not want to go from here to here, and there's a lot you can do. Don't believe anybody else who says, even with genetics, even with strong genetics, there is no such thing as somebody having fixed fate, that you're going to have dementia no matter what. There is a lot you can do. As a matter of fact, there's only 5% that we know of. That only 5% of dementias that absolutely nothing you can do about. Only 5% of people have it, and there are communities. I know there's somewhere in South America where there's a whole community of very young dementia patients, but for the most part, it has to do with your lifestyle, your thoughts, what you do. All right. So my mission is to help you do just that. Hopefully, that gives you some clarity, some direction, and hope. Okay. Now, just as a background for me, so Nigeria is where I grew up, and that's where I trained initially. And while I was running my clinic, my practice, we decided to a day of the week to devote it to the very poor, the underprivileged, who had no access to health care, who had kids with severe brain damage, so everything from cerebral palsy to Down syndrome to so on and so forth. They had nowhere else to go, and it was, I mean, I guess I can imagine it was wiping out their finances. So I would spend the whole day sitting down with them, doing the tests, checking them out and all that. And so in that process, we found out that there were things that we could do to help these people. So we went to the government and we said, listen, we can't do it the way standard procedure, standard convention. We can't do it by the book. We have found out that the brain, whether of a child or of an adult, more so with a child, but the brain of a child has so much potential to fix itself, to repair itself, if given the right tools. So our job was to find out what those tools were. And what we found out was that nutrients specifically, there were some specific kinds of nutrients. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? The body, the brain, buildings, they all require raw materials. If you find the right amounts of the right raw materials and you give them the right amounts, the body and the brain will respond. And so while we didn't have access to all the imaging studies, MRI, you all take for granted over here, we had nothing. We couldn't even do blood tests, so we couldn't even find out whether it objectively was working or not. We had to just rely on what the parents were telling us. But in that process, we learned so much, and we were able to turn a lot of things around. I have this here because whatever we were doing had to work fast. It had to be simple. In other words, anything more than just open your child's mouth and put 2 pills or 3 pills or this lotion in was too complicated. And we had to make it as simple as possible, and most importantly, it had to be safe, because just in case there was an overdose, we wouldn't have to worry about it. The parents were already dealing with so much already anyway, so we didn't want to add to their burden. So again, it had to do with the nutrients at the right time and in the right amount. So you see, they only gave us permission, by the way. The only payment they paid, they had to make was give us permission to video and take pictures of them. And so we, like I said, we dealt with a lot. Anytime I had trouble, anytime I ran into any difficulty, I would reach out to doctors over here. I would fly over, do courses so that I'm getting a certificate over there. And I gotta tell you, the Americans, I love this country. They were so giving, so willing to help out when they saw what we were doing. And so I learned a lot from these things. I'm just going to end with this story here because I think it's important. Like I said, we learned how to push. We found out that the brain could be pushed beyond what it normally would have been able to do. And we found out, and first was a mistake really, because in this case, this child had a severe form of diabetes. She was 2 years old. The nurse made a mistake, gave her 100 times the dose of insulin. 100 times. Fried her brain. So when she came in, she was referred to another doctor, and she was like hyperextended and in severe pain. She was always crying. And so I had just come back from the US then. I just said, well, I knew omega-3s could help. Omega-3 fatty acids, everybody knows what that is. The brain is made up of omega-3s to a large extent. And so I said, well, let's just help you. I'm just going to help her out. And I told them take 1 teaspoonful 3 times a day. Now this was a very concentrated form of omega-3s. She thought I said 1 tablespoonful 3 times a day. So can you imagine the irony here? It happened with an overdose and it happened with, but this time it was for the better. She came back and the first word out of her mouth first words were, this is magic. The child relaxed a great deal, started smiling, started responding. It was almost as if the brain was having a waiting to be given the right tools, to be given the right resources. And that was an eye-opener for me. And so I reached out to the scientist, genius really behind this, and I asked him if he had any more free stuff, because I bought those, and there was no way I was going to, considering how many patients we had to serve, there was no way I was going to be able to serve everybody that needed to be served. So we asked for free stuff, and they gave us a whole boatload of stuff. And so what we started doing was we went to the hospitals, we went to our equivalent of Walter Reed, we went everywhere, we started giving out those omega-3s and getting results, including sickle cell disease, TBIs, depression, among the PTSD among the soldiers, it worked so well, and then we started learning how to do other things. But for some reason, it never worked for dementia, which was shocking because I thought we had found it. I thought I was going to be rich, right? I was going to sign an exclusive deal for Africa. But it didn't work with dementia. We started having patients coming our way. So that got me into learning and figuring out and finding and searching, especially again in a third world setting where we didn't have access to these things. And so let me just tell you what the definition, what we found, this is not just my definition now, these are what people who are treating dementia successfully and reversing dementia. There are doctors in this country who are reversing dementia. Don't let anybody tell you, yes, I'm saying MD neurologists, they are being quiet, they are being, what's the word now? Silenced. Yeah, unfortunately. But there are doctors who are getting good science and they are repairing the damage that being done to dementia. So here's the definition. Dementia is your brain saying enough. And it is now doing the work of shutting itself down. Almost like hibernation. Dementia is your, now I warned you about this, right? Trigger warning. This is going to upset some of you, but stay with me. I will explain. All right, so I think we should start at the very beginning. Remember the song? Let's start at the very beginning. All right, when you really begin with
Go.
ABC. And when you sing, you begin with
Maybe.
oh, love you guys. You guys are the best. All right, so when you're talking about the brain, you're dealing with a very complicated mass of tissue, but it all comes down to the basic function. It's two brain cells coming together and interacting, passing signals from one brain cell to the next. This has to happen no matter what you're doing, whether you're breathing, digesting, doing complex calculations, no matter what, this is where it's at. It's kind of like a nation, the family, the community, the village, the city, the state, and so on. It all starts here, parents and the child, okay? Now, I drew this here because I'm going to come back to it later on. But this is a picture of a brain, not a kidney. It's passing signals to move your foot, for instance, okay? This has to happen. There are about 186 billion neurons in the brain, 100 trillion connections between the different brain cells, okay? This is going to become relevant as we go along. And this is the network. So like I said, 100 trillion cells, 100 trillion connections. I have this picture here because we're now finding out, obviously, ladies know this more than men do, that connections are the key to life, right? The better your connections between people, the happier and the healthier you would be. There was a Harvard study that was done, about 80-year study, where they found out that the most successful, the healthiest, the happiest, were those who had quality relationships. Well, as it is without, so it is within. Okay? The more connections you have, the healthier your brain will be. We're talking about redundancies upon redundancies. Sometimes you just need redundancies and backups. And this man probably personified that. When they cut up his brain, they found out that he had 4 times more connections in his brain than the average person does. So connections matter, right? Your brain's health is measured by its ability to connect and prune. So back to this diagram here. Everything your brain does, is, if you were to shrink yourself and to look at your brain, you would see explosive activity. I was in DC for the 4th of July celebrations. And the thing that the picture that comes to mind is that grand finale. Boom, 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 boom. Explosions everywhere. That's really what's going on in your brain, right? It's a firestorm, continuous activity. Cells are continually connecting and dislodging, continually connecting and dislodging from each other. That is how we know the brain is alive. Your heart beats, it pumps blood, your brain connects and disconnects. The brain cells connect. That is how your brain works. If it's not doing that, your brain is dead. So in the how many minutes we've been here now, your brain has changed considerably. Just from the information you heard and the people you've connected with, it is always changing. It has to stay alive, and that's where the problem lies. This activity that your brain is undergoing every split second, every minute, every second, takes a lot of energy. Can somebody guess what percentage of the energy that the brain needs as a whole goes towards this network? 90%. Who said that? I've never heard, all the times I've been doing this, no one has ever said 90%. Okay, well, hold on to that. Anybody else? 50. Okay.
It's what it does.
No, the brain does other things too. Like it cleans itself up, it repairs.
Okay.
It,
I'll go with the 90%.
You go with 90%.
Go with 10.
You go with 10%. You should have stayed with the 90. 80%, 60 to 80% of the entire energy usage in the brain goes towards maintaining this network. That's a lot of energy. Shows how important that is. So you can see the problem right away. If the energy supply is inadequate, you can see that things will begin to dysfunction or not work like they should. And guess where the dysfunction begins first? This is the term network instability, just to give you an idea. I mean, think about it. So I had this picture here, and thank you, Susan. Susan helped. This slideshow was terrible before. Susan takes a look at it and she says, "You cannot present with this slide." Because I'm thinking, you know what? I mean, it's just the information they need, right? You don't need to have anything nice and fancy. Thank God she thank you again, Susan. So what happens with it? So you can think about it. You're not able to maintain a network. There's going to be. I'm from Nigeria. There's no city in Nigeria where there's 100% electricity. And so there's always this triaging, rationing of electricity. That's what the brain does. Okay, so you hear things like memory lapse, mental lapses, glitches, wires crossing. I had one patient in the UK thinking about wires crossing. It's like, you are not making the right connections like you should. So I had this patient in the UK. He had, his nurse would come in and visit him. So she's white, so he would speak. My language is Yoruba, so she would speak Yoruba to his white nurse who does not understand Yoruba. His wife would walk in and he would speak English to her. He never does that. And he'd be watching TV, and then he would be reacting to the people on the TV as they were talking or arguing with him. So he would be arguing back at them. That's an example of wires crossing. Okay. Other less severe forms would be wearing your clothes inside out and so on, or wearing the mismatched socks, for instance. The other examples are difficulty following a conversation, especially in a group setting. We're now finding out that hearing loss is a big problem, a big risk factor for dementia. Because apparently that takes a lot of energy as well. Asking the same question over and over again. Sometimes it's not that they did not remember your answer. They may not have remembered they asked the question in the first place, or maybe they didn't even understand your answer to it. There's a psychiatrist actually now who is actually treating dementia patients, and she had dementia herself, and her main problem was that she couldn't follow a conversation. So she would be with friends at dinner, and everyone would be talking, and it was hard to keep up with the conversation. Okay. And so she figured out what to do about it. So, like I was saying, it's obvious now when you think about it that the parts that will be affected, especially initially in dementia, are the parts that require the most energy, which also seem to be the parts that have the greatest connections, which happen to be the parts that make us most human. Cognition, thinking complex, thinking through complex sequences of things, performing complex motor finger motions and so on. All these take a lot of energy and of course, memory. So are you beginning to see the picture here? So I ask my audiences from time to time, I say, what do you think is more important? Your brain remembering when to breathe or remembering your spouse's birthday?
Breathing.
Your spouse's birthday.
If you're a man,
Are you crazy?
Oh, this happens every time. There's always somebody in the class. There's always one person who's going to smart. Thank you, Donald. Yeah, I mean, I remember. Do you remember that, Ellen, at the estate planning conference we attended, and nobody even answered. And I looked up and I was like, how is it? Did they not understand my accent or whatever? And no one asked, and they were like, I saw the man just kind of shifting. And then finally, somebody in the front row said, okay, I'll back off. So the funny thing was I spoke at a black church, and I asked the same question. They were like, of course, Bremen, of course. And I'm like, okay, it's a white problem. What drains? Yeah, you're the exception. So the obvious question is what causes the energy to be drained from the brain. So I'm just going to give you a quick detour. I'm just going to look back at what happens over a 100-year lifespan. Okay. Hopefully we'll all live to be that long. 25. This is when what is known as the frontal part, the prefrontal part of the brain is responsible for executive function, judgment, impulse control. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking to myself, men, 25 years of age, doesn't sound right. And I've had men actually in presentations say, no, you mean 40, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. But anyway, let's just go with 25 years is when there's full development, so there's a plateau, and then somewhere after 40, the brain begins to shrink a little bit. Midlife is when we now have to be really careful, especially with things like hypertension, diabetes, and all those things, because that's when the brain's natural forces begin to kind of abate, and they're not as strong, your defenses are not as strong as they used to be. So there's many problems they're seeing, they actually say, that need to be measured, they actually start or have been around in midlife. Menopause, this is the big thing here, and I'm really trying to focus a lot of my time now on really speaking with women, because, and I'll explain that in a minute, but there are things happening in menopause that take away from the protection of the brain. One of the most powerful protectors of the brain are lost or diminished after menopause. And why this is not a national emergency. Why are we talking about this? Alright, so anything after 65 is dementia. Anything before that is early onset dementia. So Pat Summit, the basketball coach, she died at 59, so she had early onset. We're seeing a lot more cases of people in their 40s and 50s with dementia. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's crazy. Alright, so let's move on to that. So I have this picture here because this is the energy levels. All right, so 100%, in your 20s you have 100% energy levels, and you see it going down. Now, there's going to be another slide I'm going to come up with. But I just want to show you this because at menopause, which is on average about 51, there's almost a 30% drop in energy levels, which coincides with a 30% drop, with a significant drop in estrogen levels. And estrogen is really important for energy in the brain, more so in women than in men. So there's this drop, and sometimes they recover, and it stays, but they don't recover as much as men. The advantage men have is that they can convert their testosterone to estrogen for the brain. Okay, so we have one. Don't get ladies. Yes, now, if there's intervention by someone who knows what they're doing, they can actually prevent this drop and keep women's health going strong. There's a study that was done about 20 years ago which caused a lot of damage to it. And I believe someone's going to eventually have to come out and apologize, a formal apology to women for depriving them of some of the things that could have saved their lives and preserved their brains.
So it seems like that men catch up with women. Ultimately, because at 85%, men and women are at the same place. And men don't go through menopause.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but you are correct. Yeah, but with aging, you're going to get up.
Okay.
Now, as long as it doesn't get to this point, you're good. So anything about 50% loss of energy is still, it doesn't it won't qualify for dementia. All right, so the question I had, the first question was, what drains the brain's energy levels? There's another question that, how can we increase brain energy levels? But that's beyond the scope of this talk. I think it's more important that we talk about what drains the energy levels, because that is where a lot of people are failing, all right? And so I came up with a list I called it Dementia's Dirty Dozen, and try to make it cute, and try to make everything start with letter I. We're not going to go through all this now, but I do have a free ebook that that people have now. So I'm going to use this person as an example to illustrate my 12 points. Okay? So you may have heard about him. I'll say him, I narrow it down. He's had 2 strokes. He's had a few brain surgeries. Earlier on in life, he lost his wife and his daughter to a major car accident. Later on, he lost his son. Yeah. So injuries, the strokes, and the surgeries. Also, this refers to emotional injury as well. So the emotional trauma from the loss of his loved ones, his son as well. He also has an arrhythmia, atrial fibrillation, which affects the heart. Anything that affects the heart affects the brain. He also has gastroesophageal reflux, which is reflux esophagitis, heartburn. So he's been on drugs for that for a while. We are now beginning to find out that you should not be on acid blocking medications for more than 6 months, because it wreaks havoc on the digestive system and on the brain. And we have patients who have been on this for decades. I had one myself who was a superstar financial guy on acid blocking medications for 40 years. And I went to see them on one day. We met at a coffee shop, and when we're done, I got the medications over to them, and he was going to, and he picked up medications and followed me to my car. Even after I've given them, we said goodbye, our goodbyes. His wife walks up and basically, like a child, leads him back into the car. And he gets into the car, and he gets in the driver's seat, and drives off. Now we're going in opposite directions. Bottom line is that may not have been the only thing. What I'm trying to point out is that it's a combination of factors. It's usually never one thing that causes it. So we have this list here so people can identify where maybe they are weak. So Black people have more vulnerabilities in certain areas. White women have more vulnerabilities in other areas. White men and so on. The challenge I have with what is being talked about and how dementia is addressed these days is that it's all a cookie cutter approach. Just saying generalities, in my opinion. Just, you exercise more, read books, travel, and so on. And all that is important. But people need to know where their vulnerabilities are so they can make the adjustments, because it's always a day-to-day thing. It's the secret to dementia is in your day-to-day lives. And I'll be frank with you, that's really what it is. So the better you know about where those lapses are, where those weaknesses are, the better you can prevent dementia. Whereas you can care COVID-19 and so on. So that's the idea we're trying to get. So back to my point here, enough is enough. I hope I don't step on toes here, but I gotta tell you, I'm gonna make a confession. Before I came to this country, I didn't know anyone who had had a divorce. It's not that I'm saying it's nothing. Everybody we come from Africa, we just, what's wrong? We just stick to it, right? We soldier on. Not that the families are happy or anything, but they're just like soldier on.
Soldier
So when I think about this, so you think about, and I'm not referring to anybody, right? So you think about the long-suffering wife who was as a rich, high-powered husband executive, and who he takes care of at home, but he doesn't care about birthdays, he doesn't care about this, he doesn't care about time with his spouse, and then once in a while they hear about the philandering he has been doing, and then eventually it all comes out, maybe in a concert. So she decides enough is enough. she's gonna make him pay. Not only is she gonna take everything that's, I heard she's worth about 70 million, so she's, I don't know, do you think it's, anyway, she has taken his name off of her last name. Anyway, so she decides that she's going to take half of everything else, but she's going to go 2 or 3 steps further. She's also going to make sure that she cripples his ability to make any money in the future. Let's say like 99% of whatever else he makes, so obviously that cripples it. So when you think about dementia in that sense, remember we talked about how there's explosive activity in the brain, so that activity obviously is compromised. But beyond that, the ability to even form new connections is broken. So all these connections, remember we said about 100 trillion connections?
Right.
Significant percentage of that is lost. And the brain continues to pull back on it. As long as the circumstances remain, whatever it was that was draining the brain of energy, so it could have been a host of things, illnesses, diabetes, PTSD, mental health issues, gut problems. It all compounds and brings energy down. Once it gets to about 50%, the brain becomes very aggressive about cutting off all these connections. And it will continue to cut off those connections as long as the situation remains. What happens is that most people, unfortunately, most doctors do not know about this. And so they just treat the same way we've always been treating. Give medications to combat the amyloid plaques and the tau tangles. They do not address the energy deficits. Are you seeing where I'm going to with this? Okay, good. So the brain is actually a suicide mission. And it's not doing it out of malice. It's doing it to preserve the essential functions of the brain. Breathing, heart rate, respiration, and so on. Digestion, those are more important than, like I said, remembering someone's birthday. And this is the graph that we're looking at here. So I don't want to complicate it too much, but let's see now. Healthy aging. So if you maintain your health and you've got great genes and so on, this is the top one over here. 50%, like I said, once it goes below 50%, that's when it's called a mild cognitive impairment, the threshold, and once it goes below 40%, we're talking about full-blown dementia. Okay, it takes a lot to get there, but okay, so let's go. So what else is affected when the brain energy is low? So now we get to the amyloid plaques. Again, this is the definition of Alzheimer's disease. It's due to the abnormal accumulation of the proteins. And so the whole focus is to try and eradicate, remove those plaques, right? That is the standard of care. Now, based on what we've just discussed, how much sense does that make?
Not as much as addressing other issues like the causes of the severing of the connections.
Correct. Because the brain is the one doing the work, isn't the one doing it now. The brain. Oh, it's with you, all right. You got a smart guy, right? Good job. So yeah, because the brain is the one turning against you. Again, it's doing it to preserve you, but we don't know that. So the brain. So even if you remove the plaques, and quite frankly, the plaques are really the effect rather than the cause. Because part of what the brain does, there are remaining 20% of the activities, part of it is to clear out toxins and clear out plaques, and that requires energy as well. So the brain's energy levels, because they're so low, it is unable to clear out and destroy the plaques. And so the plaques accumulate, but the doctor looks at this problem and he thinks it's the ambulance that caused the accident, as opposed to some drunken driver. And so they are focusing on the ambulance as opposed to the prior problem. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. So this, in my opinion, is the best definition I've seen so far. It's not perfect, but it's the best one by the Alzheimer's Association. I told you I worked with them. For a while. So it is a degenerative brain disease that is caused by complex brain changes following cell damage leads to dementia symptoms and worsening over time. And that's the key right there. So let's put it all together. It's a big, rather messy picture, so I'm just gonna try and breeze through it. So the dirty dozen, affecting the brain, causing damage. The brain reacts to that damage. It attempts to repair, clean up. The doctor comes in and gives you medication, does not address the energy issues or try to repair the damage. And then it leads to further damage because it's just scar tissue and you're trying to fix this, trying to fix that. It all becomes a mess, and it's kind of like intensifies that cycle of pain. It keeps going, and then eventually we start losing the energy. You reach the threshold of 50%, which is mild cognitive impairment, and eventually 40%, which is dementia. All right, so we've got to get this right. And I know I've had people come up to me after a presentation and say, "Do you have security?" And I'm like, "Listen, I'm from Africa. We run with the rough crowd. I can handle it. You don't scare me." All right, so generations are waiting. The U.S. is the light of the world. The answers come from here. People will not listen to somebody who is not from the U.S. I mean, I've gone back to Nigeria and tried to change practices, and it's like, where's your U.S. certification and all that? The answers are here, and so we got to get. And Baltimore is where this is the nerve center. Johns Hopkins, the beautiful other universities, medical schools here, medical centers here. We've got to find a way to get this over to the healthcare professionals and neurologists. We've got to get this right. We're just going to keep on spending billions and billions and billions of dollars. Now, the good thing about being in the US here is that you've got all these great social services to take care of your parents. I mean, $15,000 a month. I have a friend whose father recently died, dementia. Government was taking care of $15,000 a month. Who's going to take care of that in Nigeria? Nobody. So the stakes are high. We really have to get it right. Costs will be $1 trillion by 2050. It's currently, for this year, it's projected at 81 billion. Okay, so this is of concern. We know it's going to increase by 1 million per year by 2060. In African Americans, it's going to triple. So it's certainly worse among African Americans. It's twice as bad among African Americans. It's also twice as bad among veterans. It's twice as bad amongst women. Of course, women have the greatest burden. And so I'm very concerned about this because I fall into two of these categories. And just in case you were wondering, I'm referring to the fact that what makes never know.
Okay, we need to stop about now. What do you?
Which of them is it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Never mind.
Never mind, Paul. Never mind. So the solution, folks. Okay, let me ask you this. Where would an intervention make sense in this whole? I know you can't see it all, but where would it make sense to intervene in these? On the top, absolutely, absolutely. But truly, you can intervene anywhere at any step, even at this step.
But you have to recognize what's at the top before you can intervene.
True, absolutely. But if someone comes up to me, for instance, with this, obviously you can intervene. But definitely, you are absolutely right. CJ? PJ?
Yes.
Okay, good job. I recognize you from the picture. You have a picture, by the way. So I do give a course. I'm trying to get it into organizations and individuals as well. Basically, there are three main things that's finally get to the topic of today. Finally, at the last minute. Look at how long. What a great preamble, right? So when people come down with dementia, there are three things. Greater attacks, and that could be duration, severity, dose, whatever it is. Fewer protections. They don't have enough. The brain, the defenses that your brain has are not in place. And then when things begin to go wrong, they don't get appropriate treatment. That's really where the three things happen. So that's why you have these arrows. So the goal really is to just do the opposite, right? That kind of makes sense. And so I have a picture of this nice picture of a moat and a castle and all that. So this is the defense and all that. So you want to make sure that you don't irritate, annoy your neighbors around you, so that they don't come and attack you. And make sure the defenses are in place. So I'm just going to pick one example from each. Like I said, people have different vulnerabilities. I'm just using this as an example. The one that stands out to me, especially in the US, is because you all like sugar a lot. Alright, but this teaspoon, this is what your body tolerates in the blood overall. This is what your body's comfortable with. So if you had a meal, a cake, whatever it is, your body's gonna work, your body is gonna work over time, insulin, secretion, and so on, to drive the blood levels down to this level. This is what it's happy with. So what happens when you eat 5, 6, 7 meals a day? You're eating processed foods, you're eating bread, a lot of bread, a lot of starchy fruits, all these things raise the blood sugar levels really, really high. So you wanna keep that, in mind. You want to strengthen your defenses. The one thing I want to point out, more than anything else, is a study done by the Alzheimer's Association. Do you know what nutrients they found out that can reduce your risk of dementia by over 40%? Does anybody know what nutrient that is?
Magnesium.
No.
Blueberries.
Blueberries help, but it's a specific nutrient. Omega is close. Vitamin D.
Really?
Yes.
D is in David.
Yes, ma'am. D3. Vitamin D3. And now this was shocking. I mentioned it to a friend, and then I went back to read the study again, and I realized it just blew my mind. I know I shouldn't be saying blew my mind, but so who supplemented? This was not just that. Well, we had enough vitamin D in our bloodstream. I'll get to you in a minute. They looked at people who specifically supplemented. Right? There was a 40% reduction, but in women it was 50%. Why don't you all know this? Why aren't they checking? I mean, I have friends. Yeah, but to me, I still think there's got to be a more greater reason than that. I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, I'll have to go into this. It's very important because most people think we're all self-deluded to some degree. We all think we're doing everything right. There's only one way you can know whether you're doing the right thing or not, by having an objective test, right? So there are specific tests that I recommend that people do on a regular basis. About 7 or 8 of them that I recommend that people do every year. They're not elaborate. They don't require going to a research center like Johns Hopkins. These are tests you can do anywhere. They will give you a surrogate marker to kind of give you an idea of where your brain is at. Okay, those tests have to be done, in my opinion. So you got to know your numbers. So obviously, you want to know your glucose levels, your pressure, your blood pressure levels, and so on. But vitamin D, you've got to know vitamin D levels. And don't let the doctor say it's okay. Some people, 30 to 100 is the range. Most doctors are okay with 32, 33, 34, 35. What we now know is that the closer you are to 100, the better it will be for your brain. Alright, so what are my clients? So I'm just going to round up with this. So our approach with the Brain and Body Foundation to dementia is to attack it from every possible angle. One angle, I started as in cancer treatment, chemotherapy. We knew it was complete folly if you treated cancer with one drug. It makes no sense at all because the cancer cells find a way to evade the medication, so you have to hit it from every single angle. Remember the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once? Mm-hmm. I thought it was a terrible movie, but that's the idea we're trying to get out of here. So I'm happy for Jamie Lee Curtis. She finally got an Oscar. So you can see that energy is the number one thing we look for. Blood flow is a big problem, especially with African Americans, and that's that we have more vascular dementia. You got to support your brain. For women especially, you got to support. We support the hormones. We also the immune system is huge when it comes to brain health, and of course gut health and detoxification. No time to go over that right now. I had a patient. I have a patient now. The doctor came. The son, he reached out to me. And his mom is already bedridden. She's not completely bedridden, but they're feeding her and they're trying to take care of her. And I was like, when you have atrophy and cerebral, which means brain, that's game over for most people. So I decided to put some things together for her, send it over, and I've been monitoring it. within a week, she was eating by herself, and eventually walking with support. And this morning, this is about a month ago now, this morning the son sent me a video of her getting out of bed and going to the restroom. So it's possible, it's more about the potential of the brain to do what it was designed, created, evolved. I really don't care what people think. Bottom line is that the brain has the potential to fix itself, to repair itself. It just needs help. It needs you to give it, like a baby is just gonna cry. You have to figure out what your baby needs, and you can. So I'm gonna end with this. You wanna go from low energy levels to high energy levels. That's where we have to get to the point of. That's the whole point of this discussion. So I want to thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Natalie. And we shall, yes, you have questions? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, what is, if you have more than, your normal vitamin D levels, what is, can you over be toxic in vitamin D, number one? Number two, how would you manage, the, amyloid, plaques, production and manufacturing? And three, I'm hearing more commercials about amyloidosis and things like that, so.
Yeah, that's different.
Okay, it's different category.
Yeah.
So again, vitamin D values,
Yeah.
how can we, beside getting more sun and so forth, but what's a maximum toxic level?
Uh-huh.
And how much do you recommend us taking, a day? And then how can we manage amyloid plaques and
Okay.
control?
So let me start with the last one. If I didn't make it clear already, I feel the amyloid theory is a little overblown. They've looked back and they've seen some fraud in the whole theory, and they've actually looked back and done some forensics and found out some of the images that they used to depict that there's amyloid problem in the brain that causes dementia. They were actually fraudulent. There's a big Time magazine article of that. So there's a question about that, because amyloid plaques can happen from a whole variety of things, including sleeplessness, including illnesses and so on. They've done studies in which the pathologists looked at the slides and they could not tell which one, based on the brain pathology, the brain samples, they could not tell who had dementia and who did not, because whether or not the plaques were there. Some people had a lot of plaques, and when they died, there was no cognitive deficits. There were some people who had few plaques, and when they died, they had significant cognitive deficits. They are not going to tell you these things. Okay, so does that answer your question?
So if somebody who has a high amount of, who
Plaques.
passes, away from dementia.
Yeah.
So they're gonna, upon examination, would they then have higher amounts of?
Well, like I said, it's 50-50. They may have had severe dementia, and they looked at it, and the doctors say, yeah, there are some plaques here, but it's not really different from the old
So there's no
old
direct
age.
correlation between the two.
You could toss it, I could throw a coin up and do a coin toss and get the same results. I say this with fear and trembling, right? Because I know this is against what you've been at. The main key here is the energy loss. Back to your question on vitamin D. By the way, these drugs, they're seeing some maybe positive results, but you have to remember, what it does is it removes the plaques. That's the whole idea of these new drugs do. They remove the plaques. Well, sometimes they do that too well, and they tear the plaques from the surface of the brain, resulting in brain bleeds and brain swelling in about 30% of patients. And this only works if it's in the very, very early stages. So to me, as an African, it's not, most patients come when it's really late, so it's not gonna help my patients at all. Vitamin D, the range is 30 to 100. Different people in the blood.
Right.
So, and different people different people metabolize the supplements of the sunlight in different ways. It's always good to test to make sure in the right range. I recommend at least 60% for women. For especially menopausal women.
61.
So it's called nanograms per mil. So 30 to 100 is the range. nanograms per mil. You don't need to remember those extra digits.
But those are the values.
The
I mean,
values.
That's the blood values.
So the doctor will tell you the blood value is 30 to 100. The
So the
supplements is in international units, and they recommend 800 international units. So I have to tell you what is standard of care. To me, that's ridiculous, because if you go out in the sun, a white man goes out in the sun for about 30 minutes to an hour, they will make over, wait for it, 15,000 international units. So where did 800 international units come from? Maybe they were thinking about bone density, but now that we know that the vitamin D is so important for the brain, there are doctors now recommending much more than that. I personally, for my patients, especially blacks, because we have much less vitamin D. You know why? You know why, right? Why? It acts as melanin acts as a sunblock. Right. So I recommend nothing less than 10,000 international units for my patients. Daily. Yeah, I use 30,000. I use about 30,000 a day. So it depends on your age, your weight, the skin tone, how dark your skin is, and all that. And of course, if you're dealing with other illnesses as well. So that is, like I said, this is what I recommend for my patients. You are not my patients. So stick with the 800 international units.
Can you have too much? Can you have too much?
Yes, I think it is possible, but the fear has been overblown. If you take 10,000, in most of my patients, I have not seen any problems with that, taking 10,000. Some people take more than that. The only danger is because vitamin D absorbs calcium from the gut, it can raise calcium levels.
Yeah.
So I recommend, you can get it on Amazon, vitamin D3 and K2 combination. So vitamin K2 takes the calcium out of the blood and pushes it into the bones and teeth. So that fear is nullified if you have. Yes, ma'am. Would like that's your no.
Yes, you mentioned that dementia
Yeah.
and divorce, there's a connection there.
No.
But doesn't getting divorced from something terrible prevent PTSD?
Oh, it has to be this
So I would just say that was the analogy that came to mind when I was thinking about
Why is that?
because of the financial aspect. I use the example of the spouse, the aggrieved spouse, retaliating and trying to wipe out the delinquent spouse. That was the example I was using. Now, having said that, going through a divorce is a very stressful thing, and if you have other conditions as well, and you're going through menopause, again, the pileup can happen, and it's possible theoretically that it can result in something that can affect your brain. But I'm not drawing a straight line between divorce.
So you're saying that if I give the ex dementia from divorce, I win?
If you get the money, could I have a part of that? You win the case. You win. Yes, ma'am. Pay?
Hi. My mom has dementia.
Sorry,
And,
yeah.
thank you. And we didn't notice it for a while. I mean, until things were happening, like we would, she said I had a doctor's appointment, and she couldn't find a doctor's appointment. It's on Rashtown Road. It's on a road that she always goes on to. And we finally figured it out because my aunt was riding with her, and she would tell us these stories like, yeah, Rose and I, we went up to so-and-so and got lost. And they actually would get lost in the car, but my mother cannot stand her sister-in-law, would always take her with her to make sure, she got back home. So that was one clue. I didn't like her. What's she doing with her? But we noticed that, the other thing that we noticed, the big thing that we noticed, she was a teacher, special ed teacher. She has a master's degree in special ed, and her job was to monitor children that had disabilities, high disabilities. Some couldn't even speak, and in that type of job, what she had to do was figure out how to manipulate these children to get them to do what she wanted to do. So it's a lot of fun.
This is your mom.
This is my mom,
Okay,
right.
so-
So she retired, sat down,
That did nothing.
and did nothing because she was tired. She said, you know, what are you doing in retirement? Hey, it's my time to lay back. And that's when it started to get worse.
Yeah.
So you have us, you know, I have three brothers, we have an accountant and two computer people.
Yeah.
So what can we, you know, like besides, you know, taking that, we know that also it seemed as though as soon as she sat down and got sedentary, it started.
Yeah.
Or is that because you just notice it more? Does,
It
is there
could be,
correlation?
it could be both. It could be both. So inactivity, whether it's mental or physical, is one of the dimensions that he does.
Her mother was the same way. Her mother worked on, she was a farm.
So
She was,
you want to know what to be done for her?
no,
what
well,
you're asking?
at this point now,
Don't stop thinking, don't stop doing it, yeah.
right, what we can do for us, you know, because we noticed that my grandmother also had dementia, but we didn't notice it until she came to live with us. When she was on the farm, she had to do everything.
So you're asking what can be done for your mother or for you?
I'm just thinking that
To
the
protect
correlation that we've seen is as soon as you sit down and
Don't stop, don't stop.
right, you know, as soon as you stop using your brain, you
There-
know,
there's a lot,
that
there's
relaxing.
a lot you can do. And so again, it comes down to the whole specificity. Different people have different risk factors. That's why I go through the keeping your models. I mean, it's not, I'm not trying to be self-serving, but one cannot give you an answer. I cannot.
Well, I guess my whole thing is.
Except vitamin D, obviously.
Well, my whole thing is saying, we felt as though you have to keep using your brain.
Absolutely.
You can't stop.
Absolutely.
Because we saw from my mother, my grandmother,
Yeah.
and my grandfather,
That's
as
a great
soon as
point.
they sat down,
That's a great point.
they, it seemed like it just,
Yeah.
whatever they were, whatever they were going through was getting worse.
It's a great point.
But-
I do have to ask because I have a lot of people who want to ask questions.
Okay, two parts. So when you started to erase the connections, but then you said that there were the ability to reestablish, does that mean that they're blocked or they're evaporated? Like if we see the one brain as normal state versus like in the dementia state, and then you said there can be improvements, does that mean that it can get like, it can grow back? Like it looks like a dehydrated brain versus a not, for lack of a
Right,
better term,
right.
right? Is there, so are you saying that like it has to do with those connections? Is it they're blocked or they disappear?
Once the connections are lost, the brain cell eventually dies.
Okay, but when you've had the improvements.
When you have the improvements, energy levels are
So is
increasing,
it that there
yeah.
are new areas that have not then been shut down and then those take over, or is it that they don't reestablish?
They can reestablish.
They can
They can reestablish, there can be new cells formed. The brain does make new brain cells, you know that, right?
Yeah,
So you can actually
well, I'm not a
create new
brain
brain cells.
scientist, but yeah, that makes some sense, yeah.
Yeah, but doctors say that
Then a
the brain does
second
make new brain
question I
cells.
have is that you said that if you find somebody who can help you with the HRT thing, they know what they're doing, do you know who that person is? You know who that person is? Okay, great, okay.
Boom, see?
Okay, okay,
All right.
perfect, all right, then I'm done,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Why is Baltimore number one?
What was that?
Why is Baltimore number one?
So my thoughts are, again, don't quote me on this. You've got all these great, world-renowned neurologists and all that, so diagnosis is more likely. Baltimore is also, don't get mad at me, black folks, but Baltimore is 65% black. It's a higher population of blacks. Blacks have twice the rate of dementia as whites. And then, of course, the fact that this is an old factory city, so there's that with lead and the toxins in the atmosphere that apparently with manufacturing still hanging around generations. So, yes, sir.
Is the Dirty Dozen
Yeah.
more likely to cause Alzheimer's disease as opposed to genetics? Number one.
Yes, definitely.
Number two.
Remember, it's a pylon, it's a combination of factors. Not just one.
On one of your slides of the Dirty Dozen, you mentioned insults.
Yes.
Does that allude to mental challenges or mental stresses, or what was meant by the term insults?
Great question. So it embodies mostly chemical insults. So everything from toxins in the air pollution, mold in the home, mold toxicity, to, gosh, I'm getting in trouble now.
Environmental environment.
Huh?
the bombardments.
Yeah.
And,
I don't want to get in trouble.
the Brain and Body Foundation,
Yes, sir.
are we able to go to that on the website and then access some of the slides that you presented today? For instance, the slides referring to how you can increase the energy levels of the brain.
Well, I did not present that today, yeah, but that's different talk for another time. But since you asked about it, so we're now beginning to look at things like creatine, and you probably heard about that. It's becoming a big deal these days. Creatine, very good for people who are growing older, and also MCT oils like coconut oil. That helps the brain metabolizes that instead of glucose, so that's an alternative. Alternative, thank you, energy source. So, yes, sir.
Detoxification, energy, blood flow, brain support, hormonal support, immune support, and healthy.
Gut support, digestive support, yeah. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Is there a specific test that we should ask our doctors to perform to measure the levels of vitamin D in our system?
Vitamin D test, yes.
Just a vitamin D test?
Yep.
It's probably lab work, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Is that normal lab work?
It is.
Yeah, but they're gonna argue, the doctor's gonna argue with you and say, oh, what do you need it for? And there's some kind of, I don't know what's going on, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but people are now willing to, there's been some new guidelines saying that you don't just prescribe vitamin D tests for people. Something, I know the rules are.
Is there a CBT panel?
CBT panel, I mean, it's not in CBT.
It's not in?
No.
You have to explain that.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You mentioned a number of tests. You said 10?
Seven, well, 7 tests.
7 tests?
Yeah.
Where can we find them?
Walking on that line.
I mean, I could give them to you, but I need to answer some questions first. Yes, sir.
I've read that if you combine like omega-3 fish oils with vitamin B12, I think it's methyl B12.
Yeah.
That's a powerful combination.
Yes.
Think that?
Yes. So the B12 is really important for the actual formation of the nerves themselves. Very, very important. You're deficient in vitamin B12 and destruction straight away. So B12 is very important as well.
I take those together.
Methylated B12, that's a lot more effective than just regular vitamin B12. So good on you. Yes, sir.
Somebody's developing dementia, can you stop the progression?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, it is
In what way?
possible. So I can talk about what I do, which is exclusively nutrients and nutraceuticals. It's a question of rebuilding the brain, rebuilding the brain cells that have been damaged, and then restoring the energy balance. And all that can be done. I know it's a foreign concept, even for us doctors, but if you think about it in its most basic sense, the brain is like any other building. If it's damaged, the building is damaged, you've got to restore the raw materials, you've got to restore, and you've got to get the right people to put the raw materials back together and to rebuild or to repair the damage. Same thing with the brain, same thing with the body, same thing with bones and teeth. I never knew it until I started working with these kids, because that was the only option I had. It was only then that we discovered, and it's obvious. I mean, Sarah was talking about it with me earlier on. It's a simple, straightforward fact. The right nutrients, and each part of the body requires different kinds of nutrients. You just have to figure out how to get them in a way that the body can easily absorb and send to the part where the damage or where the repair is needed. It's simple, it's not easy. I'm shocked at how few people know this. But again, because I was forced into learning about it for the kids, that has now become something that I've developed over time to learn about. The doctors who do it here, they require doing a lot of tests and a lot of blood, MRI, CT scans, and genetic tests and all that. We can't do all that in Africa. So I have to develop my own way to approach it. But bottom line is, doesn't matter how far it's gone, there's always something you can do. Now, does that mean they're gonna be restored to full function and recite Shakespeare and all that? Maybe not, but it can significantly push them to the right spot where they may be independent, have independent. I know I could get in trouble for that, but I would not be saying this if I had not experienced this over and over and over again. Yes, ma'am.
Just to put a last question on the D3K2 supplement.
Yeah.
I've been told that you can take less of the supplement in summer because you're getting natural sunlight.
Yes.
Is that true?
Absolutely. So if you're in the Northeast, from December to maybe March or April, even if you go out in the sun, but in your birthday clothes, for instance, if you're totally exposed to sun, you are not going to make vitamin D because of the tilt, something about the Earth's tilt. The UV, the specific rays of the sun are not reaching the Earth, so you're not getting it. So most blood deficient. In fact, some say that's how they came across that range, because 30 to 100 is the range. So what they found, they did an average, they tested, and the people, so they found out that on average was 30 was the minimum. 30 was what was the levels people had coming out of winter. And 100 is what they have coming out of summer. So I always recommend, so during summer is when you should be out in the sun as much as possible, because your body is making and storing vitamin D for the winter. That's why you should have it. But regardless, you should still, I think everybody should take vitamin D every single day. I don't believe in the one week a day. I don't believe in the 1 week or 1 month thing. To me, that doesn't work, and the studies show it doesn't work as well as every single day. Because vitamin D is also important for sleep as well.
Can you also touch on the omegas?
Omegas are, so if you shrink, if you take out all the fluid from the brain, 60% of what is left is made up of fat. So the brain is a very fatty organ. Now, of that 60%, about 50% are the omega-3s, omega-3 specifically. Omega-3s are important for they are part of the raw materials to make the nerves, and also they are also very important to address inflammation in the brain specifically. So it is the one thing I would recommend for everybody after vitamin D. Okay. There are also about 7 nutrients I also recommend that everybody should take. Potassium, magnesium, vitamin C. Not at all. Would love to talk to women. Listen, I'm going to just put it out there. I'm looking for groups of women we're going to talk to, because I just feel that you guys have been given a raw deal. You all need to get educated about dementia, brain health, and menopause and all that. You guys are being put out, you're just being exposed, defenseless, quite frankly. I'm like, I talk to people, I know someone who's going through menopause now, and I asked, did your OBGYN test your hormones? And she says no. Your OBGYN did not test your hormones, you're going through menopause? How much sense does that make? And they tested her vitamin D, her vitamin D was 30. And then the OBGYN says, yeah, you're good. So it needs to be at least 60 milligrams. Please remember that.
Do you have a website?
Do I have a website? Yeah, it's brainandbodyfoundation.org. And then my name, drdavid@jibadi.com. So you have, it's my full name, drdavid@jibadi.com.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, your ebook.
You're welcome.
Ebook on the website.
Your ebook.
Yes, it's on the website. I'm going to tell you, Natty, can I tell you? I had the QR code, and she was like, take it out. Do not put any marketing material here. I said, the QR code, I just put the QR code, and you guys were taking a picture, and then you would have gotten it. But she said no.
They'll give it to them.
Are you willing to hang around and answer a couple questions? Some people have dinner reservations, so I
Okay.
just want to be respectful of people's time.
Sure,
Okay,
absolutely.
great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, this is great. This is really good one. Yes.
This is better. And again, that would be good like this. It would be nice. You know, because you know, now I'm thinking back, but I've got my you know.
Yeah.
to see you.
Oh.
Don't get the divorce dementia.
No,
I'm not all worried.
You'll be better off afterwards.
Thank you.
I'll see you.
Sounds good. Okay, lunch sounds great. Oh yeah, I can probably put this on.